start recording under more. Okay. Thank you. All right. So let's do this, a brief overview. I think most of you on this call are very familiar with the Lynches River Conservation Fund. I'm just going to give a little bit of the background of the fund and sort of where we're going, and then open it up for an opportunity for the different players, if you will. We will introduce sort of who we are and what we do and what our role is going to be on the project moving forward. And then we'll talk through sort of the new process, new parameters for funding moving forward. So again, the Lynches River Conservation Fund, as you know, supports projects that will improve the water quality and ecological integrity of the Lynches River watershed. And we are looking at the full watershed, but we'll talk a little bit about how that's changing a little bit. This is specific to land acquisition and conservation in the South Carolina region of the watershed. We do make grants to 501c3 charitable organizations as well as government entities for this project. And as most of you know, there is a service area. It's on our website. It does cover from the North Carolina-South Carolina border down to the confluence of the PD River. And we have a priority area as well as an expanded service area. We began awarding grants back in 2018, and our goal, which was ambitious and we thought made total sense, was $4 million in 4 years. We haven't quite been able to do that, not for lack of trying, and our partners were very grateful for them. But to date, we've awarded just over $2.2 million and conserved over 3,700 acres, which we're very, very proud of the work that's being done with that. We're pleased to share that the Lynches River Conservation Fund will be receiving additional funds over the next few years, and we'll continue to work to conserve land and improve the quality, the water quality in the watershed. But to accomplish this really in an efficient way, we need to receive a larger quantity of high quality funding applications. And so we really sat back with our friends in South Carolina and really thought through how can we revise this process to help get more money out the door and to do more good, honestly. And so we worked with Southern Environmental Law Center as well as guidance from many South Carolina-based conservation organizations to revise that process. So moving forward, we're very happy to be working with Open Space Institute to help us identify and help our grantees identify and vet potential properties, as well as work closely with grantees to conduct due diligence, to identify additional funding that might be available for co-funding, and as well as to be able to help submit applications to the fund. There will be a rolling application now, which hopefully is a good change for you all. That the application will always be open, and this is a change for our committee as well. So our committee, for those of you who are on the call from our committee, we hope to be meeting a little bit more often, but we will do it on somewhat regular basis for that. There is a renewed focus on the priority service area. We're back to really that area in blue, which we've always had that as a committee and as our priority. And for moving forward, projects in that area will be eligible for full funding, while those in the expanded service area will be eligible for up to 50% of project funding. This is where we're really going to lean heavily and be happy about the partnership with OSI there to help secure hopefully some additional funding, help find additional funding. So that's kind of the big brief overview of everything. When you're talking about sort of the partners now on the project and who they are, we're really looking at Central Carolina Community Foundation, which we've been the administrators of the fund since the beginning. We have fiduciary responsibility. We do the grant making. We're the staff for the Lynches River Board. And that's really kind of our role on the back end. And then there's a Lynches River Conservation Fund Board, which is fund oversight. They are the ones who request the grants. They review all the grants. They are grant committee members. And these are representatives from organizations around the state, and that includes South Carolina Wildlife Federation, Conservation Voters of South Carolina, South Carolina Coastal Conservation League, Winyah Rivers Foundation, Hale Gold Mine, representatives from local government from the city of Kershaw or Lancaster County. And to be transparent, we are looking for additional representative from local government for sure to join as well. And then also Southern Environmental Law Center does serve as legal counsel. They have voice but no vote on the committee, on the board. So those are the role of those groups. And then of course there's our grantees, which we do consider partners on this project. They're the grant applicants, and grantees are responsible for identifying projects and properties they apply for and receive the funding, and therefore have overall responsibility for the project and are subject to our grant terms and conditions, including fiscal oversight of the grant, grant record keeping, reporting, typical things that are essentially a grant recipient would receive. And then our new partner is Open Space Institute. And so they're really responsible for project identification, facilitation, matching funds. And so I'll let, I think Mariah maybe sort of take the lead on really outlining their role moving forward.
Sure. So Aaron has done a great job giving that intro. And we're happy to be able to be here as an assist partner for the grantees. There was a real interest in seeing that money deployed more quickly, and to have someone serving in that role to help facilitate, coordinate due diligence, and move the projects along to the finish line. So we work with each of you that are potential grantees out there and are thrilled to be able to help with this.
When we're talking actual funding, I did want to give a brief overview of what we have. That's always a question I appreciate. I do like working with conservation groups. They're always like, well, how much is out there? They really want to cut to the chase. Like, what are we talking? So I appreciate that. Current funds, we currently have a little over 1.6 million in the fund, and that's available today. The application opens on the 30th, on the 1st of September, and so that money is available to go out this fiscal year. Additional funds will be added annually as it sort of plays out. There is a change from previous years, which I already mentioned, which is that, again, projects in the priority service area are available for up to 100% of funding. Those in the expanded service area are up to 50%, which I did mention, but wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that again as well. And so I'll turn it back over to OSI to now. Well, first of all, before we kind of overview the new process, any questions so far as to what we've covered? Okay, I'll turn it over to OSI to really sort of outline then the process sort of from beginning to end moving forward.
Sorry, y'all, I'm having some technical difficulties. Justin or Patrick, can y'all step in for a second? Let me see if I can clear it up.
Sorry, guys. It'll take me a minute to get my outline up. Can you just bear with me 1 second?
You mean to resend it, Patrick? Okay. It's just resend it. I'm not sure if you got it, if you wanted to use that as a copy, if you had a different version. Preston, do you think I should review some of this, or what do you think we should do?
I can jump in.
Guys, I'm sorry. I have been talking for the last 60 seconds on mute. I'm sorry, and Justin, don't let me cut you off, but I'll just start over. The big picture change is that OSI is going to be there essentially to consult applicants throughout the process and coordinate and manage due diligence on behalf of the applicants. And I know I'm restating a little bit of what Aaron said. So this is the survey and the phase 1 and the appraisal. And we'll be able to coordinate that with other funding sources to ensure maximum leverage to get the dollars out the door as soon as we can. The grantees will submit the completed final due diligence documents to CCF for staff review, and the grant will be approved for the purchase similar to how it's happened in the past. Justin, what am I missing big picture wise in terms of process change and OSI's role?
Just in recognition of the purpose of the fund, that there is going to be some statement added into the grant requirements more broadly for the foundation, that there would be one specific about bottomland hardwood preservation and water quality benefits that would end up in the deed, sort of like the notices that you see with other conservation funding sources like the Conservation Bank.
So on our end, the process change that we see from the Community Foundation is that really all grantees are really kind of partnering with OSI, and that's almost like the first step is making sure you connect with OSI to say, this is what we're thinking, and or OSI reaches out to you as well. I mean, it could be both ways. And so that is really sort of what we would, want from the beginning. And we'll identify who that contact is, and we'll have that on the site. We'll mention it here as well. But you'll work closely then with OSI throughout the process, and hopefully you'll see this as a benefit for sure, and having their support along the way. And hopefully you'll also love that our application is on a new system that allows you to save your application. Yay! I know Mary is cheering right now. So you can go in, and because it's always open, it's not like I have to get it done by the 30th or anything like that. So you can go in and you can add your documents, and the questions have pretty much not changed. It's going to look very familiar. It's just that you'll be able to save along the way. Of course, let me or Trinice know if there's a hiccup, because it is a new application that we have on our system. So if we maybe forgot to link something off, certainly let us know, and we can go in there really quickly. As well as if you're having trouble on the back end, we can kind of see what you're doing, and we can hopefully sort of troubleshoot some things and fix it on the back end if we need to. So we really do see this as a more relational kind of process. But after it's submitted, the process will look the same. It will go to our committee for review. If they have questions along the way, we'll reach out to you, ask those questions. You'll have 2 business days to respond. We'll get that back to our committee for the committee's review then at that point. And we do reserve the right to bring in one of the grantees if there's an interview that's needed. That's not always the case, as you know, but if that's needed, that's sort of there to be able to have conversations actually with the grantee before there's a final vote by the committee. And then again, there's contracting, which Justin as well had mentioned. There's going to be some different languaging that's in there, but very similar contracting, which is going to all be on our system. So you'll be able to log into our grant system, and you'll have the grant contract right there. You can sign it right there on the system. So everything comes to us seamlessly. There's no need to print anything, email us back anything like that. As well as your final report will be on your dashboard connected to your application. So you'll see everything in one place. So hopefully that'll help with your grant records as well moving forward. And then we pay directly through the system too. And we'll work closely with you all. We try to do our best to get money to you at closing. And so, let us know when that is. And our finance team is really great about doing electronic fund transfer as quick as possible to you all. So we'll work closely with you on that as well. Any questions so far about that?
No, Aaron, I was just going to say I'm back. I'm sorry. I had to go drive around the corner to find some internet. So I'm happy to take any questions if something came up while I was gone.
Okay, well, so when looking at budget then, I think some of this is similar, but just to make sure we'll say it out loud again. Grantees can include their organization's due diligence. Let me find my notes again. Due diligence. Hold on. Yes, grantees can include their organization's due diligence expenses not covered by OSI, such as survey, legal expenses. They can include that in the project budget. However, if the project is not funded, these expenses will not be reimbursed. OSI as well can request up to 5% of the project budget to compensate for their staff time and operational costs to identify and secure the properties and to help coordinate grant submission. These costs should be added into the grant application budget. Again, and then that would be responsibility of the grantee to then, so we know that's all in there. We'll figure out logistics if that goes to the grantee and the grantee pays OSI, or if we just pull that out and pay OSI directly. We'll figure out logistics of that. But if the project is not funded, again, these expenses would not be reimbursed. But just as a disclosure, OSI will be reimbursed quarterly for due diligence costs incurred on their own when they're out identifying and securing properties. And this includes both projects that are funded and those that are not. It's on the front end. And OSI will invoice Lynches River Conservation Fund for those costs. So that was just a disclosure about that information. So any questions at all about some of that? All right, so just again,
you know, Erin, I'll add to that just to make it clear to the other grantees that one of the things that we talked through with these terms was the risk to the conservation organizations in pursuing properties to even accomplishing the negotiation, that cost of appraisal and sometimes title work are costs that our groups incur and aren't reimbursed for if we aren't able to get to the closing table. So that having OSI helping to administer that funding, that front end funding, and knowing that that can get covered for projects is, I think, an important way for us to mitigate risk for the groups that are doing the work on the lynches.
Mariah. So I know that all of you have been to our website before, but that is where we will we have information about the fund, and the information we cover today has been added to the website, so that's all up to date now. If you go to our site, that's where you'll see the login for the grant portal, but it's also in the very top of our website. It says grant login. You can go in there, create an account, and that shall get you into our system as well. Again, the application opens on the 1st, and moving forward, Tremise will be the contact for that, and I'll work very closely with her to make sure she's up to speed. So any questions you have for Tremise, certainly reach out to her, and we'll make sure her name is added to the website so you can easily find her contact information. And OSI, I would like to make sure we had the right contact person on our site as well for folks who want to reach out to you all. And can you share who you think that might be?
I think the original point of contact, Erin, is either going to be me or Justin, and so I'll follow up with you to solidify that.
Perfect. And so we'll just add that into the website as we get it. Okay. So it's been 24 minutes packed of information. So I really do want to make sure that you all have the time you need for us to discuss anything, answer any questions, dig through some stuff, and this is certainly the time for that. Does anyone have any questions that they would like when we have all these brilliant minds on the call?
Yeah, I'm sure that the reworking of the process is hopefully helping CCCF in a lot of ways and kind of the overall management and so forth. But I'm just curious, as you've worked with multiple groups and so forth, are there any specifics or any feedback that you can give to us as far as any frustrations that occurred on y'all's end based on kind of how we as Land Trust and other nonprofits have submitted things, followed through on information, anything that have been kind of things that you would like to see us improve as a group from our end of things?
Great question. And Christine, you probably could also chime in on some of this. I think on our end as grant management, we try to make things as easy as possible for you all. And we do have a lot of templates, obviously. But I think one of the harder things is that each of you kind of do your budgets in a different way, and you sort of do things just a little differently. So for us, we would be digging through and not really exactly sure what something was. It was mostly around budget. I think we had more of our questions just because we don't use a standardized template, and we're fine with that, but it was just a little different by grantee. So I think that maybe was a little bit of a challenge.
Okay.
Christine, did you have anything that you thought would be helpful to add?
No, I actually thought the process all went pretty well. And when we had the opportunity to ask questions via email and then in person, or rather, Zoom calls with the grantee. So I think it went pretty smoothly for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's very helpful that the Land Trust and DNR have been good about calling staff ahead of time. And it's nice just to be able to have that conversation so we know the big pictures, because sometimes it's on paper, you're not exactly sure, but we can help answer those questions for the committee when they have that, because we've had those conversations with you already. So I think that's very helpful up front when you all are saying, hey, we're going to apply, this is what we're looking at. And we're kind of fully informed going into our meetings, because we really want to be your advocates as well.
Aaron, I think we might mention a couple of the things that OSI has been working on and thinking about, which we hope would also be helpful on the front end for the grantees. Patrick, do you want to give a little overview of the Lynches River mapping tool that we hope to have up and running soon?
Yes. Thank you, Mariah. So we are working on a Lynches River mapping tool that will allow all of the stakeholders to go in and look at all the available public information. And there's lots of great information that you wouldn't even know is out there and that was public, and will allow us to strategically evaluate acquisition priorities and opportunities, on our own and as a group. And it's something that we've done in various forms on the Black River and on the Mogi River and other places. So we've really sharpened our pencils and kind of have it down to an art form. So we're looking forward to rolling that out to you guys in September sometime and getting everybody's feedback. But we think it'll be a useful tool.
This is, Aaron, you guys have that nice clear mapping tool on your website that points people to the priority area and then the expanded area. We would, of course, incorporate those shape files into this other product that will give folks some more information on various things, like we'll include the South Carolina Conservation Bank priority areas, things like forested wetlands and habitat diversity and terrestrial resilience, other conservation priority aspects that just might be helpful to the grantees. This is something that we were thinking about even outside of the fund, but we think it's a tool that will be useful to everyone on this call as well. The other thing that we've had some conversations about that will be helpful to, I think, get some input on is coming up with some standards for reserve rights and restrictions of easements. That's some guidance that it's really been case to case to date. Obviously, there's a water quality impetus behind the funding, and so putting a little front end thought with the board and the foundation on what we might call minimum standards are might be helpful for everyone, we think.
Any other questions? I don't want to keep you on for no reason, but want to make sure we're here to answer any questions before the first. Okay. Well, I think that's good. Of course, always give us a call, and Mariah is certainly available as well if you have questions. There was one question: is the fund available for applications for trail easements? Tell me more about that. You guys have got to remember that I come from Human Services. I'm still catching up. I mean, I know what the word trail is, I know what easements are, but specifically when they're put together. I don't know if Mary's mic is working.
I think if Mary asked that question, I think probably, yeah, that question would be, I mean, trail easements are just an access easement. They don't necessarily put placing protections over the properties and so forth. So I think that it would, the question would be is whether there was, in addition to, say, a property being placed under a conservation easement or something of that nature, if there was any other, funding available to allow for, or even without funding, an allowance for trail access easements. Say for instance, one of our state trails would want to go through a particular area. If it was seemed appropriate and wasn't incompatible with the easement and the protections of the property, would that be allowed, and or would there be funding available for that trail development for public use?
Right. I think that, so for our committee, we really come down to, because it's nice not to have too many parameters on the fund, but at the same time, we're going to look at, will this result in hoping to improve the water quality, right? I mean, that's really where it's going to be at. And so we're open to other kinds of projects. And Christine, you have some insight as well too, kind of the committee's insights into that. But we would look at where it was located and what impact ecologically it would have on the area. All right, well, I think that's it for us then. Again, you have Tramisa's contact information, and we'll update our site, our website that I just kind of dropped in the chat with their contact information as appropriate. Certainly reach out to us with any questions, and we're really looking forward to sort of piloting this new project, this new process, and we hope you'll show us grace along the way if we hit some bumps, and we'll figure it out before the next round. But we appreciate y'all. We appreciate your willingness to walk alongside us as we revise this.
Absolutely. Thank y'all. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.